I get onto the roof through a maintenance stairwell that smells of old mop water and burned plastic. The door at the top is heavy, and the closer still works, so I ease it shut with my foot and let it latch without the metal slam. Wind hits my face and tries to pull the door back open, so I hold it, count to 3, then let it seal. The city below is loud in small, broken ways, a car alarm that has been going too long, a distant thump that repeats at the wrong rhythm for construction, a few birds that sound confused. I stay crouched beside the door for a full minute, listening for footsteps behind it. Nothing. I slide the deadbolt into place anyway. The greenhouse sits on the far side of the roof, a long glass structure with aluminum framing and a ridge vent down the center. From the street, it probably looks clean and expensive, even now. Up close, it looks tired. Some panes are cracked. A few are missing and patched with clear plastic sheeting that snaps in the wind. Shade cloth hangs in rolls on a pipe rack, half deployed, half tangled. There are irrigation lines running in neat rows, black tubing with drippers, some still pressurized enough to spit when I step on them. I move slow and keep low, walking behind rooftop air handlers and vent stacks so I do not silhouette myself against that glass. I do not pick this place because it is pretty. I pick it because it is already built to grow food and to hide work inside. A rooftop greenhouse means water access, electrical runs, drains, storage bins, and sometimes a small office with a sink. It also means visibility, which is the problem. Glass catches light. Glass draws eyes. People down there scan rooftops for anything that still looks alive. I have seen that. I have also seen what happens when a group decides a rooftop is worth the effort. Ladders, ropes, shouting, gunshots, fire. I stay flat behind a line of planters and look through the lower panels. The inside is a grid of benches, soil bins, seed racks, and hanging hooks for tools. Some benches are bare, stripped clean early on. Others still have trays. Most of the plants are dead, dried to gray stalks. A few are alive in the corners where the drip lines still leak. A vine that kept going because it had no reason to quit. A cluster of herbs that smell sharp when I rub a leaf between my fingers. I do not get excited. Excitement makes noise. I breathe through my nose and keep my mouth closed. There is a service door on the greenhouse itself. Metal frame with a keyed handle. The glass around it has a hairline crack. I do not grab the handle right away. I look for movement inside. I look for shadows that do not match the wind. I look for footprints in the dust on the floor. The world has taught me that the place you want most can also be the place that ends you. Nothing moves in there except a loose strip of plastic. I take a flat screwdriver from my pocket, slide it under the latch plate, and put steady pressure until the metal gives a little. The lock is not meant for real threats. It clicks. I open the door a fraction, pause, then open it enough to slip through. The air inside is warm, trapped heat from the sun. It smells of soil, fertilizer, and old plant rot. I close the door and press my palm against it until the latch catches. The sound is small, still too loud in this quiet. I stand with my back to the door and scan left to right. Rows of benches, a potting station with a metal sink, a stack of empty trays, 2 big soil bins with lids, a cabinet that once held pesticides and now holds nothing but dust, a little office area separated by plastic curtains. No people, no infected, no fresh mess. I walk the perimeter first. I check the corners where someone could crouch. I check behind the fertilizer drums. I check under benches. I step over broken glass and do not rush. There is a floor drain every few yards, and some are clogged with plant scraps. The drip irrigation header runs along the main aisle, connected to a backflow preventer and a small pump. The power is off, but the plumbing is still there. That matters. I find the water shutoff valve by the sink and test it. It turns. I find a hose bib and twist it. Nothing comes out, which I expected. City water is a rumor now. I pull the shade cloth down in sections, not all at once. I do it from inside, using the ropes and clips already set up. The first section drops and covers the upper panels, turning the greenhouse from a glowing box into a dull, muted shape. That makes me feel safer, which makes me careless if I let it. I keep moving. I cover the western side first, because the afternoon sun is what makes the roof shine. I leave the top ridge partially open so heat can vent. I do not want condensation building up and making the glass sparkle. I do not want a mirror. My pack is heavy from days of carrying the wrong things. A small hatchet, a folding saw, a water bottle with half a pint left, a headlamp, a lighter, 2 protein bars that taste of cardboard and sugar, a roll of duct tape, a screwdriver, a handful of zip ties, a cheap kitchen knife. I take inventory because forgetting something is expensive now. I set the pack under a bench. Then I sit on the floor with my back against a soil bin and let my eyes adjust to the filtered light. My legs shake a little from the climb and the stress of being exposed on the roof. I do not label it fear. I just watch my hands and wait for them to steady. I pick a sleeping spot in the least visible area, behind the office curtain, where the plastic and shelving block direct sight lines from the glass. There is a narrow aisle back there and a rack that once held grow lights. I drag 2 empty soil bags over and flatten them into a pad. On top, I put a piece of foam insulation I find leaning against a wall. It smells of chemicals, but it is better than bare concrete. I keep my sleeping gear minimal. Too much comfort makes a person slow. Before I rest, I make the greenhouse quiet. Loose tools go into a plastic tub. Metal on metal gets wrapped in cloth. A dangling chain gets tied up. A cracked pane that rattles in the wind gets braced with a wedge of wood. The roof itself has sounds too. Vent fans that spin freely in the breeze. A loose flashing strip that taps. I crawl out for one risky minute and pin that strip down with a screw, turning it by hand, not using a drill. From below, any sudden machine sound carries. Sound travels up streets, bounces off buildings, then climbs. I eat 1 protein bar in small bites and chase it with 2 swallows of water. I do not drink more. Water is a schedule, not a comfort. I stash the wrapper in my pocket. Trash shows that someone is living. I wipe my hands on my pants and stand up again. No sitting for long. The first day in any shelter is the day you get caught by your own relief. I force myself to keep working. The greenhouse has a small storage room. The door is swollen from moisture, but it opens with a shove. Inside are bags of perlite, peat, and fertilizer. Some are torn, some are intact. There's a box of nitrile gloves, half a case of masks, and a shelf of seed packets in plastic organizers. Most packets are sun-faded, but the printing is still readable. Lettuce, kale, radish, green beans, tomatoes, herbs. I do not take it all. I take what makes sense for limited water and fast harvest. I tuck packets into my shirt pocket and zip it closed. There are also 2 rain barrels on a raised platform near the drain line. One is empty. One has stagnant water with mosquito larvae. I do not touch it yet. Water is life and illness, both. I need a way to clean it. I rummage and find a box of coffee filters and a stack of clean 5-gallon buckets. The buckets are dusty, but intact. I find a small bottle of pool shock, the granulated kind used in maintenance, with a label that is half peeled. I do not grin. I just set it aside with care. That bottle means I can disinfect water in controlled amounts. It also means I can poison myself if I get careless. The sun drops and the greenhouse cools fast. That is the other problem with glass. Heat moves in and out with the light. At dusk, I pull the shade cloth a little more. Then I stop. Too much cloth makes it look strange from below, a dark block where there should be glow. People remember the way buildings used to look. Even hungry people remember. I want the rooftop greenhouse to look dead and abandoned, not defended. I leave gaps and sagging edges. I make it look neglected on purpose. I do not use a flashlight. I do not turn on the headlamp. I sit in the office corner and let the last light fade. When it gets too dark to see my own hands, I stay still. I listen. The wind is constant up here, and it covers smaller sounds. That helps. It also hides footsteps. I count the roof access doors I saw. One near the stairwell, another on the opposite side, probably for the other rooftop equipment area. I find that second door and lock it from inside with a piece of conduit jammed through the handle. It is not perfect, but it forces anyone coming through to struggle and make noise. Night in the city is not quiet. It is just different. There are distant voices sometimes, sharp bursts that end quick. There are animals. There are infected too, though the infected do not own the night in the way people imagine. The infected get stuck. The infected fall into holes. The infected wander into buildings and stay there. The worst noise comes from people who think the rules are gone. Up here I hear a group arguing somewhere a few blocks away, then a gunshot, then a long pause, nothing after. I sleep in short chunks, 20 minutes, 30. Then I wake and listen again. I do not know if it is training or damage, but my body does not want to go deep anymore. When I do sleep, I keep one hand on the hatchet handle, not because I plan to fight, because it keeps my hand from drifting and knocking something over. Small, practical habits. Morning light creeps in through the cloth. I get up before full sun hits, because the first hour is when people move, looking for opportunities before the streets heat up and the infected start drifting toward noise. I check the roof edges from inside first, peeking through low panels. I see no movement on nearby roofs. I see no smoke. I see a few abandoned cars at an intersection, doors open. I see a paper sign taped to a streetlight that flaps and reads, "Safe food" in block letters. I do not believe it. A real safe place does not advertise in the open. I start the day with water work. I take the bucket of stagnant rain barrel water and pour it through 2 layers of coffee filters into another bucket. It is slow, so I set up a little gravity station using a hook and a piece of wire. When the filtered water looks clear enough to treat, I measure a tiny amount of pool shock in a bottle cap, dissolve it in a small cup, then add a measured portion to the bucket. I wait. I do not rush. I write the time in my head, count minutes, then smell the water. A faint chlorine bite is what I want. Too strong means I messed up. While the water sits, I inspect the irrigation header. There is a small hand pump on the line, used for priming. I take it apart and clean grit out of the seal. I do not have replacement parts, so I improvise. A strip of rubber from a broken glove becomes a gasket. I tighten it down and test. It holds. That means I can use gravity and manual pressure to push disinfected water through drip lines once I get a storage tank set. A greenhouse that can drip water directly to roots is a greenhouse that can feed one person without a daily watering parade that draws attention. I begin with radishes and lettuce. Radishes sprout fast and give edible greens too. Lettuce needs steady moisture and shade. I use old seed trays, fill them with a mix of soil and peat from the storage room. and plant in rows. My hands move careful. I keep the soil damp, not wet. Wet soil grows mold. Mold grows sickness. I place trays under benches where light is indirect through the cloth. The greenhouse has enough sun even through shade to keep plants going. I keep it subdued. I want life, not a glowing farm beacon. There is still the question of food before anything grows. My stomach is not the boss. Time is the boss. I need calories that do not require cooking, at least for now. Cooking means smell. Smell means attention. I decide I have to go downstairs into the building for supplies. Not today. Today, I map the building from memory and from what I saw in the stairwell. It is a commercial tower with offices, maybe a small gym, maybe a break room area with vending machines, maybe a cafeteria on a lower floor. That is worth a risk. I spend mid-morning making a safer path between the greenhouse and the roof door. I move low behind air handlers, mark the route with a strip of tape on the ground where it cannot be seen from the edge. I also choose 2 hiding spots on the roof, one behind a bank of ductwork, one inside a rooftop equipment cage with a broken padlock. If someone comes up unexpectedly, I need somewhere to vanish without sprinting. Sprinting is loud and visible. At noon, I do nothing visible. This is the hardest part. The sun is high. The glass, even covered, still reflects in places. People on the street look up more at midday because the shadows move. I stay inside the darkest corner and sort seeds by touch. I check water again. I eat another bar, half of it, and save the rest. I run a mental list of what I need from below. Canned food, a manual can opener, bottled water if any exists, a tarp, a blanket, batteries, a small radio if I get lucky. Late afternoon, I make my first trip down. I pack light, knife, hatchet, one empty backpack space for loot, a length of cord. I do not bring anything that clanks. I unlock the roof door and ease it open, then close it behind me without letting it swing. The stairwell air is cooler and stale. I walk down one flight and stop, listening. No sounds. I keep going. My steps stay on the outer edge of each stair to reduce echo. It is still loud enough to bother me. I hate the way enclosed spaces amplify small mistakes. On the top office floor, I find a broken glass door and a reception area. Papers everywhere, a motivational poster on the wall that reads, "Build together." I do not stare. I go straight for the break room. The vending machines are empty and smashed. Someone already did this. Cabinets are open. The sink is dry. There is a case of bottled water on top of a cabinet, half hidden behind a stack of printer paper boxes. I freeze and listen again. Then I pull it down carefully, one bottle at a time so the case does not crash. I load 6 bottles into my pack. I do not take them all. Greed slows a person. I search the desk drawers in a manager office and find a small first aid kit. Bandages, antiseptic wipes, a roll of gauze, some ibuprofen. I take it. I find a cheap flashlight with dead batteries. I take it anyway. I check a closet and find a wool blanket used for a staff nap room. It smells of sweat and old cologne. I still take it, because cold nights on a roof can ruin judgment. I hear a sound from below. A soft drag on concrete, then a bump. I stop moving and lower into a crouch behind a cubicle wall. I do not breathe loud. I do not shift. The sound repeats. Drag, bump, drag, bump. That is an infected. Not fast, not aware, just moving. It is in the stairwell or in the hall outside. I wait until the rhythm moves away. Then I back out the way I came. I do not push my luck on day one. On the way back up, I pause at the roof door and listen for wind. Wind is my cover. If the wind drops, every door sound becomes sharp. Wind stays steady, so I open the door and slip through. I get back into the greenhouse and seal it behind me. I do not relax. I unload quietly and stash supplies in the office corner. I take one bottle of water and drink slowly. Clean water feels dangerous because it invites waste. I cap it and put it back. The next days become routine with small changes. Morning waterwork, quiet planting, slow repairs, midday stillness, late day scavenging when necessary. I find canned food in an employee kitchen on a lower floor, mostly soup and beans. I find a manual can opener attached to a keychain shaped like a football. I find a bag of rice that has burst in a storage closet, and I do not take it because cooking rice takes time and smell. I find peanut butter packets and take every one. I find a box of granola bars and split the stash into 2 hiding spots in the greenhouse, in case someone finds one. I also find evidence that someone else has been in the building recently. A new footprint in dust, crisp edge, not weeks old. A candy wrapper that is still flexible, not stiff from drying. A bathroom door that is shut with paper wedged in the latch. A trick people use to see if anyone opens it. That last one makes my throat tighten, not from fear, from focus. I remove the paper and put it back later the same way. I do not want anyone to know I noticed. I want to remain a rumor, nothing more. On day 5, I hear voices from the street below for the first time that sound organized. Not panic, not random shouting. 2 men, 1 woman, calling to each other in short phrases. Footsteps, metal scraping. I crawl to a low panel and watch through the gap between shade cloth and frame. 3 people move along the sidewalk with a shopping cart and long sticks. The men wear backpacks and bike helmets. The woman has a bright yellow rain jacket that makes her visible from blocks away, which tells me she either does not understand visibility or she has decided not to care. 1 man points up at rooftops as he walks. My stomach drops, not from hunger, from timing. I pull back from the glass and kill movement. I sit behind the soil bin, hands flat on my knees, and listen. Their voices drift closer, then fade. No one comes up the building. No banging on the door, still. That moment changes my plan. People are scanning. People are thinking vertical. Rooftops are no longer ignored. If I want to keep this place, I need it to look stripped. That means I need to mess it up without ruining my food. That evening, I make the greenhouse look abandoned on purpose. I drag a dead plant tray to the most visible bench by the glass and scatter dry soil around it. I leave an empty fertilizer bag ripped open near the door. I lay a broken hose across the aisle, twisted, so it looks neglected. I hang 1 strip of shade cloth wrong, so it sags and looks torn. Everything I do has to signal failure. A thriving greenhouse is a prize. A failing greenhouse is work. People avoid work when hungry. I also reduce my footprints. I sweep the main aisle with a soft broom. Then I redust it with a handful of dry potting mix in random patches so it does not look swept. Clean lines show control. Mess suggests abandonment. It is strange to sabotage your own shelter, but this is the price of staying alive in plain sight. On day 7, the first seedlings pop. Tiny green hooks pushing through soil. I do not celebrate. I move trays into slightly better light and keep the moisture steady. I pinch off mold spots the moment I see them. I keep air moving by opening a ridge vent an inch and letting wind circulate. I avoid fans. Fans mean sound, and sound means attention. I learn the temperature swings. Midday can hit 90 degrees inside even with cloth. Night can drop into the 40s. Plants handle it better than people think, but water use changes. I adjust. There is a problem I cannot avoid. Water supply. The rain barrels will not refill without rain, and this city does not get rain on demand. I need a catch system that captures even small storms. The roof has drains and downspouts. I trace one downspout line and find an access point in the rooftop maintenance area where water runs into a pipe. I can tap it with a funnel and hose into a bucket during rain. I build the setup ahead of time, so I do not have to hammer and cut during a storm. Storm work draws eyes because people look for lightning and movement. On day 9, the wind changes, and I hear something on the roof that is not wind. A soft scrape, a pause, another scrape. I freeze, then crawl behind a bench and look through the lowest panel near the roof door. A man is on the roof. He moves slow, shoulders hunched. He is not infected. He has a backpack and a pry bar. He stays near the HVAC units, scanning. He looks toward the greenhouse, then away, then toward it again. He is cautious, which makes him dangerous. A reckless person makes loud mistakes. A cautious person makes quiet decisions. I do not rush to the door. I do not grab my hatchet and plan a fight. I focus on one thing, staying unseen. I lower my head, move back into the deepest shadow, and stop. The greenhouse is covered, but there are gaps. If he walks right up to the glass and presses his face close, he might see shapes. So I become no shape. I sit on the floor behind the soil bin, knees tucked in, blanket pulled over my legs, hands flat on the ground so I do not fidget. The man walks closer. His boots scuff gravel. He stops near the greenhouse door. I hear the pry bar tap the handle once, soft. He tries the handle. It does not open. He taps again. He does not start slamming. He listens. He steps to the side and peers through the glass. The cloth blocks most sight, but I know there is one gap near the lower corner. That gap is now a scope line into my world. I keep my head down. I do not breathe loud. I do not shift weight. He moves along the side. I hear him mutter one word under his breath, too low to catch. He tugs at the cloth, testing it. It holds. He tries the greenhouse door again. Then he walks away toward the far edge of the roof. I wait long after the last footstep fades. Waiting is painful. Waiting is also survival. After 10 minutes, I crawl to a panel and watch. The man is at the opposite door, the one I jammed with conduit. He pulls. The door does not open. He tugs harder. The conduit holds. He makes a frustrated sound, then stops. He stands there thinking. Thinking is the most dangerous part. He chooses the roof edge and climbs onto a low parapet to look down the side of the building. He is checking for another access route, maybe a fire escape, maybe a maintenance ladder. I cannot stop him without being seen. I stay still. After a minute, he drops back down, adjusts his backpack, and heads toward the roof door he came from. He disappears into the stairwell. I do not move for another 5 minutes. When I finally stand, my legs feel stiff, and my hands tremble from holding tension. I shake them out quietly and force myself to work again. Panic wastes time. That night I change my security. I cannot stop people from reaching the roof, but I can get earlier warning. I set a trip line on the roof door from inside, using fishing line I found in a desk drawer and a small metal washer. If the door opens, the washer drops onto a metal plate. It makes a sharp ping. Not loud enough for the street, loud enough for me. I also place a second line at the greenhouse door, so if someone forces it, I know instantly. I also adjust my hiding spot. I move my supplies into the soil bin base, tucked inside a void behind stacked empty trays, so even if someone peers in, the stash is not obvious. I keep one bottle of water and one can of food within reach of my sleeping spot. Then I move everything else. A shelter is only safe if losing one corner does not lose everything. On day 12 it rains, hard and sudden. The sky turns gray, and the city shifts into a different mood. Rain makes infected slip and stumble. Rain also covers sound. That is good and bad. I use the rain. I open my catch system and fill every bucket and barrel I have. Water runs off the roof in sheets. I keep my head down and move fast, but not frantic. I use the noise of rain to do one more thing. I go downstairs deeper than before, down to a lower mechanical floor where the building has maintenance supplies. I find a coil of rubber hose, clamps, and a roll of thick plastic sheeting. I haul it up, one trip at a time, while the rain hides my footsteps. The rain also brings a leak in the greenhouse I did not expect. Water drips through a cracked pane and lands on one of my seed trays. Too much water drowns seedlings. I climb onto a bench and patch the crack from inside using the thick plastic and duct tape. The tape sticks poorly in humidity, so I dry the glass with the blanket first. I press the patch in place and rub it hard until it seals. I do not make it perfect. Perfect patches look cared for. I smear a little dirt on it so it blends with neglect. After the rain, the city smells cleaner for a few hours. Wet asphalt, damp concrete, leaf rot from planters on balconies. I take advantage of that scent change to do a small cook session, my first. I use a tiny alcohol stove I found in an employee emergency kit, barely larger than a can. I cook 1 can of beans, lid cracked just enough to vent, and I eat it warm with a plastic spoon. I keep the stove low, no flames visible from glass. I keep the shade cloth down. I keep a bucket of water near in case something spills. Smoke is the enemy. Smell is also the enemy. But rain air helps. On day 15, my first radishes are ready. Small, not impressive, but real. I pull 2, wipe them on my shirt, and eat them raw. The crunch is loud in my own head. I chew with my mouth closed and listen between bites. Nothing on the roof. Nothing in the stairwell. I eat 2 more and save the rest. Fresh food changes a person's thinking. It also changes a person's risk tolerance. I do not let it. I stay strict. That same afternoon, I see smoke from the east. Not a small cooking fire, a building fire, thick, black. It rises above rooftops and drifts toward me with the wind. Fire changes everything. Fire draws people. Fire also draws infected, because people shout and run. I watch from behind the shade cloth and track where it is. A few blocks away, maybe an apartment building. I hear faint sirens that start and then die. No fire department is coming, I know that. The smoke reaches my roof in a thin haze. It makes my throat scratch. I wet a cloth and tie it over my face when I move around. I close the ridge vent more, not fully, but enough to reduce smoke infiltration. Heat builds. Plants droop. I mist them lightly with clean water, careful not to create shine on the leaves that might show through the glass. I move trays deeper under benches. I also fill every container with water in case the fire spreads and I have to run. Running with empty containers is pointless. At dusk, the fire glows orange between buildings. The sky takes on a dirty color. This is when people do stupid things. I hear shouting in the street below, closer now. Footsteps pounding, a shopping cart rattling. The sound of something heavy dragged along the sidewalk. I crouch and watch through a low gap. A group of 5 moves down the street, all carrying bags. One man looks up at rooftops repeatedly. Another points at the greenhouse. I see the gesture clearly. My mouth goes dry. I pull back and kill movement again. The group does not come to my building right away. They pass, then pause at the next one, arguing. I cannot hear words, just tone. One person waves arms toward the fire. One points toward my building again. They are deciding. That decision happens in minutes, but it feels longer. I choose a new plan in that moment. If they come up here, I cannot fight 5. I also cannot hide if they start ripping cloth and breaking glass. So I prepare to vanish down the stairwell and leave the greenhouse behind, if needed. I pack essentials, water bottles, first aid kit, knife, seeds, pool shock, blanket. Everything fits into my pack within 2 minutes. I set it by the stair door. The trip line on the roof door stays quiet. No ping. The group never enters the building. After 10 minutes, they move on. I do not relax. I keep my pack ready for the rest of the night. I sit in shadow and listen to the city burn. The fire crackles in the distance, a deep rumble that travels. Every once in a while, there is a sharp pop from a window blowing out. I do not sleep much. I work instead, tightening patches, securing trays, checking water levels. Work keeps the mind from wandering into bad places. On day 18, I find a working battery backup unit in an office storage room, the kind used for computer servers. It is heavy and awkward, but it still holds a charge. I test it by plugging in the dead flashlight with fresh batteries. The light clicks on, strong. I do not use it long. I do not want to get addicted to light. Still, that battery unit means I can charge a phone if I find one with life left, or run a small fan for plant health during heat waves, maybe for short bursts. I haul it up in stages, resting on landings, listening for movement every time I stop. In the stairwell on the way up, I encounter an infected for the first time face to face. It stands one flight below, head tilted, hands hanging. Its clothes are dirty office wear, a tie dragged in grime. The skin is pale but not rotten the way movies sold it. It turns its head slightly toward my sound. I freeze. The infected takes one slow step, then another, drawn by the tiny scuff of my boot. I do not run. I lift my pack slowly off my shoulders and set it on the landing, so it does not slide and make noise. I then step back up, one stair at a time, moving without scraping. The infected follows, slow but steady. I need it gone without a fight. Fighting in a stairwell is chaos. I retreat to the roof door, open it a crack, and let wind noise flood down. Wind confuses the infected. I use that moment to pick up a loose metal sign from the landing, one of those wall plaques that fell earlier, and I toss it down the stairwell, not at the infected, past it, so it clatters on a lower landing. The sound bounces, sharp. The infected turns and shuffles toward it. I slip onto the roof, close the door with care, and engage the deadbolt. My pack stays on the landing for 10 more seconds. Then I open the door again, grab it, and pull it through, closing the door without slam. I do not breathe hard. I just stand and listen until the infected sound fades down the stairs. That night, I add another layer to the roof door. I wedge a piece of rubber under the threshold so the door does not rattle in wind. I also hang a strip of cloth near the door inside the greenhouse so any draft movement warns me if the roof door opens. Small indicators matter. You stop trusting the big ones. Big ones come too late. On day 21, someone starts living in the building next door. I know because I see a tarp appear on their rooftop, stretched between two vent stacks. I see a small cooking smoke plume at dawn, controlled, thin. I also hear a voice one morning, a woman calling down into the stairwell opening of that building, telling someone named Eric to hurry. That name and that calm tone tells me this is not a roaming group. This is a small unit settling. That can be good or bad. Settled people make plans. Plans include expansion. I choose not to contact her. Not yet. Contact turns me into a person in her mind. A person can be asked for help. A person can be followed. A person can be hunted if he has something worth taking. I keep watching instead. I track their routine. Two people on the roof sometimes, a man and the woman. The man moves with a limp. The woman moves quick. They keep their tarp low and their smoke minimal. That means caution. Caution can turn into respect. It can also turn into suspicion. A week later, I find a note taped to the inside of my building's lobby door. The note is fresh. It reads, "Rooftop garden here. Need trade. Will leave food." That note changes my stomach in a way I cannot ignore. Someone suspects. Someone is scanning buildings and leaving messages. It might be the group next door. It might be someone else. I do not tear it down. Tearing it down tells the writer someone read it. I leave it. I also stop going through the lobby for a while. I use a side stair entrance that opens into an alley. It is harder, but it keeps me unseen. My crops improve. Lettuce begins to form real heads. Radishes come in steady. I start green beans in larger pots. Beans climb, so I rig string lines under benches and train them upward, keeping them below sight lines. I prune leaves that touch the glass, because leaves against glass show from below in sunlight. A shadow in the wrong place can betray you. I learn to think in silhouettes. I learn to think in reflections. I learn to wipe condensation early in the morning with a cloth. Not because I want cleanliness, because droplets sparkle. Sparkle draws eyes. I also start composting in a sealed bin, using plant scraps and paper shredded from office files. It smells if I do it wrong, so I do it in small batches. I layer dry paper with wet plant matter, keep it turned with a plastic spatula, and keep the lid tight. The compost is slow, but it gives me future soil health. Future thinking is dangerous because it makes you assume you have one. Still, soil depletion will end me faster than infected if I stay long-term. I do not ignore that. On day 33, the roof door pings at 3 in the morning. A sharp metal tick, unmistakable. I wake instantly and sit up, frozen. I do not grab the hatchet yet. I listen. I hear the roof door open a fraction, then a pause. I hear a soft scrape of a boot on gravel. Someone is on the roof again. Wind covers some sound, but not the pattern of deliberate steps. I slide off my sleeping pad and move to the greenhouse interior wall, keeping my body below the bench level. I crawl, not because I want to, because it keeps me low and quiet. A flashlight beam sweeps across the roof outside, bright and quick. It hits the greenhouse glass in a moving stripe. The shade cloth blocks most of it, but the beam shows where gaps are. The person is searching for those gaps. I keep my face turned down and away. Even a pale face can reflect. I hear the greenhouse door handle tested again. A gentle rattle, then stillness. The person is listening for a reaction. I do not give one. The flashlight beam stops. Footsteps move to the side panel. The cloth shifts slightly. Someone is pulling on it. The clips hold, but one corner loosens and flutters. I hear a quiet curse, not loud, not dramatic. A man's voice. He does not start tearing cloth. He changes tactic. I hear him kneel. Then I hear the delicate sound of glass being scraped, possibly by a knife tip, trying to cut through plastic patching or pry a cracked pane. I cannot let him open a hole. A hole turns into a hand. A hand turns into a face. A face turns into full entry. I make a decision that tastes bad. I will not fight him. I will make him leave. I crawl to the office area and pick up a small metal tray. I also pick up 2 washers. I move back to the far end of the greenhouse, away from the spot he is working. I crack the interior door to the roof access area just enough to slide the tray through. Then I flick 1 washer onto it. It makes a crisp ping. Then I flick another, farther away, so the sound seems to come from a different spot on the roof. The scraping stops. Footsteps shift. The man stands. The flashlight beam sweeps toward the sound. I wait 2 seconds, then flick a third washer onto the tray, a little louder. That makes it feel active, not just wind. The man walks toward the far end of the roof, away from the greenhouse, flashlight moving. I keep still. I do not keep making noise. Too much becomes a pattern. One more quiet ping, then silence. The man pauses, listening. Wind. Distant city noises. Nothing else. He returns toward the greenhouse, slower now. The beam sweeps again. He tests the cloth once more. Then he backs off. I hear him walk to the roof door. The door opens, then closes. The ping line stays quiet after that. I wait, counting in my head. Then I wait longer. When I finally move, my legs feel stiff, and my mouth tastes dry. I do not say fear, I say this. Someone came up here with a plan, and the plan will return. In the morning, I inspect the outside through the low panels. I find a scratch mark on a cracked pane, fresh. I also find a small wedge of metal stuck near the frame, the kind used to pry. The man left it by accident or left it on purpose as a marker. Either way, it means he will be back. I pull it free and drop it into a bucket of water. Then I stash it deep in the soil bin void. I do not throw it off the roof. Dropping metal creates noise, and noise draws attention. That afternoon, I take a risk and watch the neighboring roof. The woman in the yellow rain jacket is up there, though the jacket is now dirty and dulled. She stands near the edge and scans my roof. Her hands are on her hips. The man with the limp stands behind her, pointing. I cannot hear words, but I see the exchange. They suspect my greenhouse has value. Maybe they saw the man with the pry bar. Maybe they sent him. Maybe someone else did. I cannot assume allies. I cannot assume enemies either. But the difference is small when resources are scarce. I choose a middle option that keeps me hidden but changes the story. At dusk, when light is fading and street visibility drops, I pack a small trade bundle, 4 radishes, 2 small heads of lettuce, 3 peanut butter packets, 1 bottle of clean water. I put it in a paper bag, then I tape the bag under a broken rooftop vent cover near the roof edge, visible enough that someone searching might find it, hidden enough that it does not scream trap. I also add a note written on office paper in plain print. It says, "No roof entry, food drop only. Leave batteries or cans here. Do not return after dark." I do not sign it. Names are handles. Handles get pulled. I place the bag and retreat. From inside, I watch through a low gap. 10 minutes later, the woman appears on her roof, then crosses to the edge and looks toward my vent cover. She does not climb over. She does not shout. She waits. Then she goes back and returns with the limping man. He holds a long stick with a hook. He leans across the gap between roofs, careful, and uses the hook to pull the vent cover up and snag the bag. He does it quiet. He reads the note, his head angled down. The woman reads over his shoulder. She nods once. They retreat. The next day, there is a return bundle under the vent cover. 2 cans of tuna, a small pack of batteries, a single wrapped granola bar. No note. That is fine. The trade works better without conversation. Conversation grows into negotiation. Negotiation grows into pressure. Pressure grows into someone deciding to come up anyway. I take the bundle and leave nothing else that day. I want to keep the rhythm irregular, so no one can plan an ambush schedule. Weeks pass in this tense balance. My greenhouse grows into a working system. I harvest and replant in cycles. I keep shade cloth managed, always a bit sloppy from outside view. always functional inside. I continue to go downstairs for occasional items, but less often. I use the battery backup for short bursts to charge a scavenged phone that has no service but still keeps time and can store notes. I keep my notes simple: water amounts, seed dates, trade drops, strange sounds. The building itself becomes more dangerous. Infected wander in from broken lower doors. Sometimes I hear them in stairwells, bumping and dragging. I block one stairwell landing with a stack of office chairs wired together, not to trap them forever, just to slow them and create noise if they push through. I avoid killing. Killing is loud. Killing also brings mess that attracts other things. I focus on barriers and misdirection. One morning, I find the lobby note changed. New writing under the old message. It says, "Roof farm confirmed. Will take." That handwriting is different than the first. The first was neat. This one is rushed and angry. My skin prickles, and I force myself to stay calm and practical. Someone else knows now. Someone else is bold enough to threaten. That means a raid is possible. I prepare for the worst without turning myself into a fortress that looks defended. I pre-pack my escape kit again. I identify a second exit route off the roof. There is a maintenance ladder down to a lower roof section on the far side, then another ladder to a neighboring building. It is risky, but it exists. I secure a rope there and test it at night when visibility is low. I also cache a small supply on that neighboring roof in a vent alcove. Water, 2 cans, a blanket strip. If I have to flee, I will not flee empty-handed. On the day the raid comes, it starts with noise from below, not above. Shouting in the lobby, a bang on a metal door, then footsteps rushing up the stairwell, heavy and fast. Multiple people, not careful. That tells me this is not the cautious man with the pry bar. This is a group that thinks speed wins. Speed also makes mistakes, but it can still overwhelm. The trip line pings. The roof door opens hard, not eased. Wind blasts in. The door slams once, then opens again. Someone is holding it. I do not wait. I grab my pack and move to the far roof ladder route. I do not sprint. I move fast with control, staying behind roof equipment. Through a gap in shade cloth, I see 3 men on the roof. One has a crowbar. One has a baseball bat. One has a pistol. They fan out. The man with the pistol points toward the greenhouse and shouts, "Here!" That word is loud enough to carry down streets. I hate him for it, but hate wastes time. The men approach the greenhouse door and start yanking on it. They rattle it hard. The sound is huge in my head. The crowbar hits metal. The bat hits glass. A pane breaks with a sharp crack that echoes. Glass falls. The men cheer, short and ugly. I am already at the ladder, crouched, hands on the rungs. I look back once, not to mourn, to confirm the pattern. The men are focused on entry. They have not scanned the far side of the roof. That gives me seconds. Seconds are currency now. I descend the ladder to the lower roof section, keeping my boots on the side rails when possible to reduce clank. I hook my rope and slide down to the neighboring roof, landing in a crouch behind a vent stack. The city noise swallows my landing. I stay still. Above, I hear more glass breaking. Then I hear a fourth voice shout from the roof door, "Hurry up!" Another person is coming up, maybe more. The sound is growing. Growing sound draws infected. That is the one force these men do not control. I move along the neighboring roof, low, staying behind parapets. I reach my cache alcove and grab the small bundle I left. I add it to my pack. I then crawl to the edge that faces the street and look down. The raid noise has already drawn attention. Two infected are shuffling toward the building entrance, drawn by the shouting and impacts. More are farther down the block, heads turning, bodies drifting. The men on my roof do not see this yet. They are still fighting glass and frames. I cannot save the greenhouse, not with 3 armed men and more incoming. I also cannot ignore what happens next, because their noise will spill into the neighborhood and pull infected toward every building around, including the neighbor roof pair. That means the woman and limping man are in danger too, even if I never meet them face to face. This is the part where the mind tries to turn survival into hero work. Hero work gets a person killed. Still, there is a small action I can take that does not expose me. I take one of the washers from my pocket, the same kind I used before, and I flick it off the roof edge onto the metal awning over the building entrance below. It pings loud. Then I flick another. The infected below react instantly, heads tilting toward the entrance. They shuffle faster. The noise from above keeps them coming. The awning pings again when I flick a third washer. Now the infected are directly under the entrance, clustering. If the raiders try to exit fast, they will exit into a mess. That buys time for others to stay away. It also punishes loud stupidity without me showing my face. I retreat from the edge and move deeper across rooftops, stepping from one building to another where possible. I keep low, I keep moving. Behind me, the roof raid turns into a different kind of noise. Shouting changes tone. A gunshot cracks once, then another. That is not hunting, that is panic. Then there is a long series of impacts, the sound of bodies hitting doors or walls. Then more shouting, closer to the roof door. I do not look back again. Looking back is for people who can fix the past. By late afternoon, I am 3 buildings away, crouched inside a rooftop mechanical shed with a broken vent that lets me see the street. The infected now cluster around my former building. More drift in from side streets. The roof itself is hard to see from here, but I catch movement near the roof door. One man stumbles out swinging a bat. Another follows, and the third, the one with the pistol, is not visible. The first man slams the roof door and leans on it, breathing hard. Then he turns and runs across the roof. He is not carrying loot. He is carrying panic. The infected do not climb roofs easily, but people do. And people flee into stairwells, and stairwells fill. I watch the roof door shake. Someone inside is pushing. Something inside is pushing. The door shutters again. The man with the bat looks back, eyes wide. Then he runs toward the roof edge, scanning for ladders. He finds the far ladder route, the one I used. He grabs it and starts down fast. The other man follows. Their boots clank. Their hands slip. One almost falls, catches himself, then keeps going. Below, infected gather. The men do not see the full picture. They only see escape. The roof door bursts open, and an infected stumbles out. Then another. The infected do not sprint, but they fill space. The roof becomes crowded with slow bodies and frantic men trying to descend. The scene is ugly without needing gore. It is simple. Loud men created a problem, and the problem grew. I stay in my shed and keep quiet. I do not cheer, I do not pray. I just watch and understand. Dusk falls. The raid noise fades into scattered impacts and distant shouts from streets. The greenhouse, my greenhouse, is gone. Even if it stands physically, it is compromised. Glass broken means visibility. Broken glass means entry points. Entry points mean anyone can come. My crops will be trampled, stolen, or dried out. My water barrels will be dumped. My careful neglect disguise is shattered. That place is no longer plain sight. It is now a target. I sit in the shed, and eat one tuna can with a plastic fork. It tastes flat, but it is protein. I drink a few swallows of water. I keep my pack on. I do not unpack. This is not a new home. This is a pause. The skyline to the east still shows faint smoke from old fires. The sky over the city is a dirty gradient that never clears fully anymore. I listen for the neighbor woman's voice on the next roof over. I do not hear her. That might mean she stayed quiet. That might mean she left. I do not know. Night settles, and I move again, careful, across rooftops. I choose a path that keeps me away from obvious shelters. People scan obvious shelters first. Rooftop tarps, greenhouses, warm lights. I move to a building with nothing but gravel and vents. I find a recessed corner behind a billboard frame and wedge myself there with my blanket. I do not sleep deep. I do not trust the night. I think about the greenhouse and the weeks of quiet work. I think about the radishes and the steady drip lines. I think about how plain sight works until someone decides to look. Morning comes cold. I watch the former building from a distance. The roof is still. No human movement. The greenhouse panels glint in places where cloth tore away. A few broken panes leave dark gaps. The infected cluster at the building base has thinned, drifting away without constant noise. That means the building might be passable again later, but the greenhouse is ruined as a hidden asset. It is now a landmark. I cannot go back there and pretend. Pretending works once. After that, it becomes a trap you built for yourself. I move through rooftop routes and find a new option. Another greenhouse, smaller, on a different building farther west, partly collapsed, less visible. Not a clean commercial setup, more of a hobby structure someone built for a rooftop restaurant. The glass is dirty, the frame bent, and the shade cloth is gone. It will not draw eyes because it already looks dead. Dead-looking structures are safer. I approach it slow. I do not assume safety because it looks broken. Broken places hold surprises. Inside, I find soil bags that have turned hard from moisture. I find a cracked sink. I find old pots. I find no seeds. I find no working irrigation. Still, the frame gives shelter from wind. The roof access door here is jammed from damage, which means fewer visitors. I test it. It takes effort to open. That is good. I can make it louder for anyone else. I decide to stay for now. Not because it is better, because it is available. Availability is what decides most of life now. I spend the day transferring what I saved. Seeds, pool shock, the last of my clean water. I build a new water catch using plastic sheeting and a gutter made from a cut office trash can. I patch holes with duct tape. I salvage a length of drip tubing from my old building by taking a risky midday trip back through a service stairwell entrance, moving fast and leaving before anyone sees me. I do not take much. I take enough to rebuild a small system. I accept that I am starting over. That acceptance is heavy, but it is also clean. Clean thinking keeps you alive. By evening, I plant again in small trays, using what soil I can salvage and cut with perlite from an old landscaping supply closet. The first seeds go into damp soil. I cover them with a thin layer and press it flat with my fingers. I set the trays under the least broken section of the roof greenhouse. I cannot hide completely here, not yet, but I can keep my profile low. I can keep movement minimal. I can keep the structure looking dead from below by leaving debris visible near the glass. I sit in my new corner and listen to the city. I think about the idea that hiding in plain sight means no one sees you. That idea is wrong. People see a lot. They just decide what matters. My first greenhouse worked because people decided it was already stripped. The moment someone decided it might still have value, the shelter died. The lesson is not to hide better. The lesson is to make your value hard to read, to stay boring, to stay quiet, to stay forgettable. I eat the last granola bar from the trade bundle and drink a measured amount of water. I lay the blanket down and keep my pack close. Tomorrow I will need to forage again for soil and containers. Tomorrow I will need to check the roof edges for watchers. Tomorrow I will need to set new trip lines. Tomorrow is work. Work is survival. I close my eyes for a short rest, then open them again and listen. Wind, distant voices, a far-off crash, then silence. I do not know how long this second greenhouse will hold. I do not know if the woman in the yellow jacket made it. I do not know if the angry handwriting in the lobby belongs to someone still walking. I only know what is in front of me right now. Dirt under my fingernails, a few seeds in trays, a roof above a broken city, and the decision to keep moving without letting the world pull noise out of me.